Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christy, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. You are in for a treat today because we have not one but two fabulous and brilliant guests with us today. But before we get started, just remember, if you're not already following this podcast, I need you to do that. I need you to share it with all the humans you know, because that's the only way it gets its news out. And it's so many wonderful things that you can use right away. So I have the privilege and honor of introducing you to Amos and Krystal Pierre, some very dear friends, and they are lots of things. They are Josiah's parents. They are fashion experts. They have the best laugh collectively ever. They are computer geeks / all things technical, and they like to luxury travel for less. So you guys are in for a treat today, most definitely. Krystal and Amos, welcome to Productive Joy.
Thank you so much for having us, Christy. Hi.
This is going to be so much fun. All right. So here's the reality. We know that people have a very short attention span. And so you need to convince people that they want to listen to this episode. So what would you say to our friends to get them to keep listening?
You should continue listening because Christy is a fantastic interviewer.
Yes.
And she pulls the best out of people. So we have no idea what we're about to say, but it's going to be good because Christy is interviewing us. So stay tuned.
Thanks. I'll pay you later. I love it. Well, and you guys are truly some of our most dearest friends. We feel so privileged to get to know you, to get to spend time with you just about every Sunday because you all are our pastors. And Jason and I just think that you're pretty special people and you have a whole lot to bring to the table. So today is all about others getting to know you a little bit. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Christmas?
Christmas. So when Amos and I were dating, getting to know each other a little more besides being friends, we both realized that our favorite holiday is Christmas. And so that was a huge bonding point with us. So much so that when we couldn't get married in December like I would have loved to because I was a teacher at the time and orientation and moving and all the things. So we decided to have our shower in July, and it was a Christmas in July shower. But that was inspired by a friend who we went to college with, and she always thought we should be together. And when we told everyone we were dating, she texted us, "I don't have your name." That was when the joint name was a big thing. And she's like, "You guys should be called Christmas." And she meshed our names together, Krystal, Amos, Christmas.
Love it.
And so it was a huge thing that we still love Christmas to this day. We're one of those people, it's controversial. We start in Thanksgiving. People already got trees up. So
in our house, the rule is the day after Thanksgiving. You are not to decorate before Thanksgiving. It's the day after. Otherwise, I think that I might get excommunicated from my home.
Yeah, we are polar opposite. Our tree's been up for weeks by the time we pulled the turkey out of the oven.
But you know what? I appreciate that. I think that's good. And I love the meshing of the names. And you guys actually really pay a lot of attention to marriage. You've been married how long now?
August makes it 8 years that we've been married.
8 years, but you were together for a while before that. And you actually have a really integral part in working to grow marriages within the Safety Harbor area. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think it's pretty special.
Yeah, absolutely. It all starts with the Harborside Chapel. So if you've never seen a Harborside Chapel, if you're listening to this, whether you're driving or maybe you're watching this, once this episode is done, just check out the Harborside Chapel in Safety Harbor. It's drop dead gorgeous. But the reason why we have the chapel is so we could do mentoring, marriage mentoring. And it's our way to really impact our community by giving people marriage skills. So when you look at the Harborside Chapel and the marriage mentoring, the natural progression from there is once you get married, you need marriage community. Maybe you're the only one of your friends who's getting married and you're trying to figure life out. And so the very next step after that, that's totally available for absolutely everyone. It's called Marriage Monday, and it's a collective of groups. It's a community for couples who want their marriages to grow. And that happens at our church. So through the Harborside Chapel, you get the marriage mentoring. And then what's available to you is to join our marriage community through Marriage Monday, where you're with like-minded people, other couples. You get that community, people who've been married roughly the same length as you or a little bit ahead, a little bit behind you. and you really get to grow community by being in community. And so it's been an amazing journey just to see how the chapel has brought people together in close community with one another.
Yeah, and it's a small group of like 250 people.
Which is fine.
Real small,
Little
real
very
small.
intimate.
Yeah, we don't
Small
want this to
group.
grow too big.
No, bigger than most churches. So I love that you called it a marriage community. And I think that's exactly what it is. Jason and I are a part of it and are just so honored to get to pour into young married couples for the most part, although we kind of run the gamut anymore.
Yeah.
But what do you think is, or why do you think it is so important that within a marriage you have a community? Why can't we do it by ourselves?
It's really important. One, because I think it helps within the health of a marriage to have other people kind of as a mirror. Because if you're a silo to yourself, it's very hard to see the things that you're doing well that you have in common with other people, what may be normal that you're not really quite sure of, as well as if you hit a roadblock or a conflict, it helps to have a healthy community of people who are pursuing, you know, godliness and joy within their marriage to be a sounding board, to be a source of accountability, and to also help reinforce the tools that you already have and that you've been given, whether through premarital or just years of reading or getting to know your spouse, or just so many benefits to having people around you who are moving in the same direction in their marriage.
And I would say, just to piggyback off of that, what you've started off with, knowing what you're doing right is such a big key component.
Mhm.
And when you are in community, like you were saying, sometimes you may say, yeah, we don't really know what we're doing with in-laws, but this is what we decided to do this year. And there's 3 couples in there that are like, wow, that's really amazing. That I think that's going to work for us.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's nice to know that you're doing something that is actually inspiring to other couples as well, too.
Mhm.
And like you were saying, if you're a silo unto yourself, you may not be able to identify the things that are actually working really well for in your marriage, and not just average, but really above average.
Yeah.
So knowing what you're doing right, and then also being able to grow those growth areas in your life as well, too, by being in community.
Mhm.
Oh, so important. And I love the image of the mirror, right? Because we do need somebody who reflects back on us.
Wow.
Here's what I see when I see you. And sometimes
Mhm.
that's positive and sometimes that's opportunistic.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Love
Yeah.
it.
We're not going to say negative. Just
Good way to
just
put
say
it.
it's an opportunity. And I think it bleeds over into all relationships, not just
Mhm.
marriages, but it's really pretty special, I think, that our community chooses to focus on the sanctity of marriage and the fact that, we want to stay together. Jason and I just had our 25th wedding anniversary. And for
Yay.
what, yeah, no, woo, 25 years is a long time. Like I've been married to him longer than I have not been married to him. And the same is
Wow.
now true for him too. So I think that makes us old, one, but it also makes us seasoned in this space.
Yeah.
And I think what I have appreciated about you all is that you're creating new spaces for people that are very intentional and are thoughtful. And so, Amos, something that you said a long time ago that you may or may not remember is you're a planner, right? Like you plan
That's right.
things. You really kind of run the church doings and the facilities and all that kind of stuff. But you said that you like to plan for the best case scenario so that, if 500 people show up, great. And if 300 show up, you still are prepared. Tell us more about that positive spin on, because most people plan for the worst case scenario.
Absolutely. I think there's wisdom in both. I think there's wisdom in planning for worst case scenario just to make sure your bases are covered. But a lot of times, best case scenario can create a worst case scenario. So this all started from one of our Easter programs. We were doing Easter, I think this might have been the year 2019, and we prepared for about 3,500 people and 5,000 showed up. And so very quickly, we had a best case scenario, which is so many people are coming to our church, but it created a bit of a worst case scenario of what do we do now?
Mhm.
And so with everything that we go into, yes, we have a plan for what's the worst that can happen, but we actually plan a few steps of what if this is more than amazing? What if this blows us out of the water? So I think sometimes it's also wisdom to just have a plan for if we had 30% more in attendance, how would we be able to solve that? And so that way, when the best things happen, you're actually prepared for it and you're ready to respond to it in the best way possible, as opposed to trying to get people to leave, which is not what you really want to do. So it's always, I think, wise to, yes, think about worst case, but best case sometimes is almost equally as wise. So yeah,
I love that. And that's not just in church work, that's in life work, right? Like in all spaces, we have options for what we choose to see. We can see best case scenario situations, we can see worst case scenario situations, and where we choose to focus is what's going to come into focus. So that is
absolutely.
something I appreciate about both of you is that you are always looking at the bright side. It's not that you are Pollyanna-esque, you are more just there's a lot of good going on, and you choose to see it, and you bring it to light for others, which I think is pretty great. So that kinda leads me to my favorite question to ask. So if you had to define productive joy, what does that look like for both of you? And I wanna ask both of you separately, so you each get your own answer, and you get to rock, paper, scissors to decide who goes first.
Ooh, I'll go first.
Oh, that was
Yeah,
easy.
you didn't even have to play rock, paper,
Because
scissors.
I
I like
think
it. Go, Crystal, go.
sometimes productive joy for me is constant progression in an
Mhm.
area. The idea that you may not be exactly where you want to be, but finding joy in the reality that you will continue to get better and progress if you continue to show up, and that God helps us along the way as we continue to show up. That's productive joy to me.
Oh, I love that. Constant progression in any area, right? Not just
Any area, any area.
love
Yeah.
that. Love that.
Marriage, parenting, career, continuing to show up and know, hey, I don't have to have it all figured out, but as I show up and I present myself, I will continue to progress.
Oh, I like that. I
Yes.
like that a lot. I don't know if you can top it, Amos, but what's productive joy to you?
Well, number one, I can't top it. That's for sure. So I'm not even
Smart
going to
man.
try. I'm just trying to get a C. And that's all I'm just trying to pass. I think productive joy to me, when I define that, it has two parts. One part is self-aware, and the second part is self-content.
Hmm.
So one, I am self-aware of who I am, where I am, like you were saying, Crystal, but I'm also content in who I am and where I am, knowing that where I am is not where I'll end. It's just where I am today. So self-aware, but also self-content, which can be difficult for some people like myself, who's trying to plan and always wants to make sure we're improving, wants to make sure that everything is done right. Sometimes I have to take a step back in self-awareness and also be self-content and measure backwards, look backwards and say, wow, you know what? I'm not where I used to be. I actually have a little bit more skills than I used to. So I think it's two parts, self-aware, but also self-content.
Well, and I appreciate that about you because I happen to know that you and my husband are literally the same human. Like it is frightening the things you notice and think about and oh my geez.
Yes.
But and I'm not going to use the word critical because that's not it. Particular. You are very
Yes.
particular people. And so for you to be both self-aware and self-content, I think sometimes you do have to take a step back and go, you know what? I am not going to need that to be perfect. I'm going to need that to be as good as it's going to get today, this day. Is that true? Am I putting words in your mouth?
No, no, no. That is true, and that's why for me, I have to have both sides. For people like me and your husband, we're a lot alike. We can be very self-aware of all of our strengths, all of our weaknesses, all of the things in the middle. But having that other side of self-content as well, too, I think is what creates that productive joy, where I can find happiness in today and also happiness in the expectation of tomorrow.
Yeah. So I don't normally ask this question, but I'm going to ask it of the two of you because I think it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Why do you think productive joy is important?
Mm, great question.
Productive joy is important because it's not just about what you're doing, but it's about the process and the journey, particularly on the inside.
Ooh.
So we do all these things and we're born with this purpose and we have these tasks at hand, whatever they are, titles, positions. And it's really never about the destination, the title, the accomplishment, but the productive joy is in the journey along the way of who you become. So
Mm,
I think that's why it's really important.
Mm.
absolutely. Yeah, I would piggyback off of that. And the kind of the analogy that's coming into my head right now is being a kid and driving to Disney World, field trip. And I was born in South Florida. So it was about a 2.5, 3 hour drive. And oh my goodness, every minute that passed, you just got more excited because you're getting closer and closer to Disney. And I think at some point in adulthood, you kind of lose a little bit of that where you're no longer excited about what's to come. You're more defeated about what is
Mm.
now and how come I'm not there now? How come I don't have this now? And so I think choosing to seek productive joy actually creates an anticipation for the future, which I have found actually makes you more productive. It makes you more intelligent in some ways. It helps you problem solve a lot better when you're looking at options, when you're looking at problems with options as opposed to problems with no hope. And so I think productive joy for me is getting on the bus and getting excited about getting to Disney World in adulthood.
Oh, I love that. Well, and before we started, when sweet Josiah needed to take a nap, we talked a little bit about joy is an inside job, right? And I think what you mean by that, and then I want you to explain it, is it is a choice. It is something that we have to pull from within. We can't rely on external factors to bring that joy. And so, like going to Disney World, right? We're super
Mhm.
excited about it because we know what's coming. In life, sometimes we don't know what's on the other side of the end of that bus trip, and we're a little hesitant. But tell me more about joy being an inside job and why that is such a cool strength to have.
Absolutely. Just flip through the channels, flip through the TV, fear sells. It really does sell. It's a really great
Mm.
selling point. Hey, your home isn't insured well enough. Hey, your car warranty is going down. And so if you can create fear, it actually sells pretty well. And so if you're not careful to have joy as an inside job, everything else externally is not going to contribute to that joy. Everything externally is just really reminding you how bad things are and why this product or service can bring you hope. And so for us, or let me just speak for myself, for me, I have found whenever I have not sought joy on the inside of me, and I do that through prayer, through meditation, through the scriptures, whenever I find myself not doing that, I can physically feel myself with that Eeyore cloud over me.
Mhm.
Whereas productive joy for me, being an inside job, is really taking the time to look inside myself and say, here's where I see God at work in my life. And I think that is so critical and so important because it affects your mental, it affects how you see things, and no one else can do that for you. Sometimes it's harder to be honest with other people, and sometimes it's the hardest to be honest with yourself.
Mm.
And so I think when you're seeking joy on the inside, you're able to be really honest with yourself, which actually brings about great productivity.
Mhm.
Mm. I love that. Crystal, would you add anything to that?
That was great. I think it's just when we don't see joy as an inside job, we miss the joy of the valley seasons
Mm.
because there is some joy in some of those seasons that, on the journey of good things and success, there's the uncertainty, there are the obstacles, and all of it works together. The internal integrity that we build, the strength of mind and heart that we obtain when we begin to look at joy as something internally, then we can kind of look at every season, the mountain peak and the valley season, as something that we can take joy in because it's all working for our good.
Mm. You guys are always just so clear with how we're supposed to do this, and I have a tough question for you. So, as leaders, it is our job to lead our people, whatever that looks like. Whether you're a mom leading your children or a CEO leading a company of 5,000, it is our job as leaders to lead others. And I'm hearing you say joy is an inside job and you have to, fear sells and that's what's on the outside. But what we find on the inside is what gets us through those valleys and those peaks. But how do we practically, as the leaders in a situation, help others find that internal joy? Because if it's a choice, it's still up to the person. But how do we, not forcefully, how do we carefully guide people into that space of joy?
Curiosity would be
Mm.
my first answer
Mhm. It's
of
good.
just, I think people, the fear, disappointment, resistance, it looks so different in every person. And so I think that what we've learned over the years is just having a curiosity about the people that you lead and being able to really listen. And from the listening, every now and then ask some really good questions
Mm.
that kind of help people unearth where the resistance may be coming from, and then try to also help them unearth the solution to that.
Mm, mm. That's
That's
really good.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. I would also share too, along with that, along the same lines of curiosity. I think whenever you're leading people and you have a responsibility to turn talent into productivity in an organization, I think it's always the default to try to figure out what the employee is not doing well enough. A team member is not really producing like you think they should, and point those things out. And I've found that that really is the lowest level of leadership. And if you can force yourself to sit back with that curiosity and look at what people are doing right and inspiring them and encouraging them in the lanes that, hey, you're actually extremely talented at this. Hey, I appreciate you doing this very specific thing. You've done a very good job at this. And here's how it helps our organization.
Yeah.
I found that whenever I'm able to do that and point out those things in people, then they're able to find the joy in themselves. Not many people get encouragement from their jobs. And so if you can stand out as an employer and be an encourager, I think you get a lot more out of your staff. And it's actually more fun to lead that way too.
And people quit things that aren't fun. So you have to make it fun. And it's not fun to feel like, I know, me too. Yes, I feel that somewhere. But I think there were two things that you said that I think bear revisiting. So ultimately, you said know your people. And the more you know your people, the more curious you stay, because everybody has a story and everybody's story is unique to them. It's like a fingerprint. But if you know enough about their story, you know where they're coming from, where their fears are, where their concerns are, and you're able to help. But ultimately, that goes back to the mirror. You know, what we talked about with marriages, you have to hold up a mirror for that. But I think you have to do that with your employees too, right? You're saying, here's what I see. When I see you, here's what I see. What do you see back? Because I know I don't see what other people see in myself. Most of us don't. And yet that is who we are. That, perception is reality. That is who we are to others. So I think something that I know to be true about you all is you do that for people naturally. You model it beautifully, which means that those who you lead are also able to replicate that space. So well done. That is not easy to do. It is, but you do it masterfully. So I do have some rapid fire questions, and these are my favorite because both of you are going to get to answer each one of these. So we'll take turns on who gets to go first so that, you can't outshine or overstep anybody else's. So we're going to start with Krystal. You're going to answer this question first.
Sure.
Amos, be ready. Okay. Question number 1. Krystal, what is your definition of fun?
Definition of fun. Spontaneity.
Ooh,
Believe it or not.
say more.
Especially now in this season of my life where I have to plan everything as a wife, as a mom, as somebody in ministry, just being able to get up and do something that's not planned. So much fun.
Oh my gosh, I love that. All right, Amos, what about you?
I was literally going to say planned spontaneity. I
Yeah,
literally
you don't like to fly by the seat of your pants. That's not your scene.
You're right. So planned spontaneity for me is I've anchored my day. I know here's what we're going to start the day in. Let's say here's how we're going to end it. And then we've got free time.
Yes.
So anything in that kind of structure, let's do it. So planned spontaneity is my idea of fun.
Well, because there has to be a little bit of control, right? Like you
Just a
can't
little bit.
just,
Yes.
we don't know when we're going to get up and we don't
Yes.
know.
Hey, what's going on? It's like, when did this stop?
Yes. And again, you and Jason are exactly the same human. It is just unbelievable. Okay. So Amos, you get to answer first this time.
All right.
How do you know that you're showing up as your authentic self?
Oh, yeah. I think that's very easy for me. If I walk away from a situation and I'm not thinking about what I just said, then I was probably my authentic self. So if I'm in a meeting, if I'm in a discussion and I walk away and I'm still in my head about it, I probably was not my authentic self, second guessing myself. So for me personally, if I can speak freely if I can make a decision freely, if I can have a conversation freely, then I know that I'm showing up as my authentic self. And whenever I don't, then I know, something happened.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good answer. Krystal?
I knew my answer immediately. So that was funny. I was going to say, if I'm in a situation, a conversation, an environment, and I'm thinking too much about what I'm saying, I'm not my authentic self.
Mm.
So not so much if I walk away, but if I'm in it and I know that I'm thinking and I'm rehearsing and I can't fully be in the moment, that's a surefire way for me to know I'm not being my authentic self.
So, from both of you, it's overthinking. Whether the overthinking happens during or after, it's when you
Mhm.
can't just be you. You are
Yeah.
having to be to be somebody else for the situation. And we all have
Right.
situational awareness,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
yet, I know I love it. I fully agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so Krystal, this is you. How do you channel your best self on your worst days?
Oh, on my worst days, I start with what? How is this worst version of me showing up? Because usually the what is an indicator of the why. So is
Hmm.
it huge anxiety? Is it frustration? And then from there, just from years of practicing, I know depending on what it shows up as, that it's either, hey, you didn't make a list and put it in your calendar, so you're frazzled and you're not your best self today, or you are overthinking and you're overthinking because you feel like you can't be yourself in this situation. Let's switch it so that you can be your best self. So I always start with, okay, what is this looking like in this moment? And it's usually a good indicator for why, which helps lead me back to my best self.
Mm.
Good answer. All right, Amos, you got a lot to top there, buddy.
I can't top it. There's no way. I had a second to think, which was helpful. On my worst day, I try to do what's most uncomfortable for me.
Mhm.
So I naturally recharge as an introvert, but on my worst days, that's the worst thing for me.
Mhm.
So on
Hmm.
my worst days, I try to be around as many people as possible. So if I see a group of people hanging out and having lunch or having a just discussion, I jump in there. Hey, what are we talking about? Let's crack some jokes. So on my worst days, I find that I'm my best version, or I can become the best version of myself when I am the opposite. When I can be an extrovert, it actually helps me in my introverted nature to actually pull myself out of my shell.
Oh, that's good. Now, how did you figure that out?
No, honestly, it from years of being put in that uncomfortable environment. So at a very young age, I started, volunteering in the youth ministry and all that as a youth leader. And so I'm already an introverted kid, but I had to go up and talk to people. And so on the days when I really didn't want to talk to anyone, I just wanted to get in and get out, I couldn't. And I found that by the end of the night, I was in the best mood ever. And
Hmm.
so nowadays I try to do the same thing with staff, whether it's even encouraging someone else. Hey, tell me about your day. Did you do anything fun this weekend? Usually that's enough to get me out of my worst feeling to a really positive, a great feeling.
Well, it sounds like you're recognizing that when you pour into others, it actually fills your cup.
Absolutely.
That might mean you're in the right industry for hi. As a minister, I feel like that is
Right.
very much what you have to do.
Yes.
All
Right.
right. My favorite question. People are only going to be able to remember a finite amount of all the brilliant things that you said. So if people can only remember one thing, what's the one thing that you both really want them to remember about the last 30 minutes?
I think you went first last time, so it's me.
Mhm.
Okay.
Look at you taking turns. How nicely.
Right.
Hey, I know I'm not going to top whatever she says. Let me just get it in first. If there's anything I want people to walk away with is if you look inside of yourself and you allow God to speak to that inside of yourself, then it'll always be better than what you thought you were.
Mhm.
You'll always see that you are more than you could ever imagine. You're always going to see that you have more peace than you thought. You're always going to realize that your identity is more secure than you originally thought before you looked on the inside of yourself. So I think if you mine and you dig deep enough, you'll actually find someone wonderful and pure, which makes you a better leader, which makes you a better decision maker, better entrepreneur, and better person to be around with.
Oh, good answer, Amos. Good answer. Krista?
I I would say keep showing up. It's hard sometimes to dig and find that productive joy. It may be hard to build that habit and that internal strength of productive joy, but if you keep showing up every day and you keep positioning yourself to learn and progress, you will look back at who you were yesterday, a month ago, a year ago, and you'll be surprised with what God can do with you just showing up.
Ugh, I just love you guys. This is for those of you listening, and this is your first experience with these fabulous human beings. This is who they are every single day. And they choose to show up for others always. And they definitely bring something very unique to the table because they do stay curious. And I am just honored to call you my friends. And so people might want to find you. Like they might want to say, these are the kind of people I want to hang out with. How might somebody find the Pierce?
Just a bat signal in the sky,
Yeah.
and I'll come to you.
Yeah.
We both serve at Harborside Christian Church, and I'm the executive pastor there. Crystal is the Marriage One Day director there. And then you can always find us online on social media at Amos D. Pierre and at Crystal C. Pierre. And we'd love to connect with you and chat with you and talk about anything that you've heard today or anything that you didn't hear.
Love it. And Crystal is with a K. So make sure you get that
With a
part
K.
right with a K. That's
Yes.
important.
Very important. Yes.
Well, and we'll add all of that to the show notes. But I just want to say thank you to both of you. I know there are a million other things you could do. Today is your day off. Your son is asleep, and you are talking to me. So we all appreciate you being willing to share your brilliance. And for my friends in the Productive Joy community, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of this space. Thank you for choosing to learn a little something from the really smart people that I'm surrounded by. And I just ask that you would continue to do just that. Let me know what you want and need because I cannot read minds. I am very smart in a lot of ways, but not that one. So, no matter how hard I try, I can't predict what you need. I can only give my opinion. So your opinion matters to me. Let me know what you're thinking. And continue to look for this shot of B12. The goal is that there be something you can use right away to shift your today into something more productive tomorrow. And we also ask that you figure out a way to turn fun into action.